Alright, with the first card, we start with a spell card with Prohibition. Yes, pretty old school classic spell card from Pharaoh 7. And Prohibition says, when you play this card, declare the name of one card. As long as this card remains on the field, the declared card cannot be played. The cards which are already on the field before this card's activation are excluded. So basically, you call the name of any card you like, for example, Ash Blossom. You have to call the complete name, okay? So otherwise, some people they pussy around and you didn't say the full name, man. That's it. Its name is not Ash Blossom, the players, the little fuckers. And then he cannot use this card as long as this card Prohibition is on the field. For the recent events, you just call Fiendsmith Engraver, and he can forget his complete Fiendsmith engine because you took away his most valuable monster. Of course, this works best if you know you go second. So this is probably best way is to have this as a side deck option, not in the main deck, because you don't know in the first game what your opponent plays. So, but if you know his combo pieces, or that he runs a lot of hand traps, or there's a specific hand trap you don't like, then you side that in, call it if you have it on your starting hand, of course, and then you don't have to fear these threats again. So Prohibition, very nice. Costs, it's a little bit expensive, okay, we're talking about €1 or something, or €1.50. But a nice little tech card not everybody has on his radar. Next up, also extreme, strange and classic one. Question. Yes. Question. It's that old, it's still called Magic card. It's from Pharaonic Guardian, and I believe it only has one reprint in Dark Revelation 2 or 1, somewhere like that. It's extremely strange, you can use this to intimidate your opponent and just, play a little bit of mind games on them. When activating this card, your opponent cannot check cards in their graveyard. Your opponent calls the name of the first monster found at the bottom of your graveyard. If he/she call it right, the monster is removed from play. If he/she call it wrong, the monster is special summoned on your side of the field in face-up attack or defense position. So, you can't go wrong with that. That's always a win-win situation, because he cannot check the graveyards at activation. So you just check your graveyard, before you activate this card, and see if there's a monster on the bottom. And then you activate it, and nobody can check then the graveyard, or your opponent cannot check the graveyard. You can still. Yes. And and he have to call the name of the monster on the bottom of the graveyard, and nobody remembers that, at some point of the game. And then you get a free special, and otherwise it gets banished. You can push the game in the direction you want. You can accidentally show your opponent the monster at the bottom of the graveyard, very very clearly. So he calls it right, but secretly you want that monster to get banished, to start a combo or whatever, So Question is a little bit of a mind game card, and certainly catches any opponent off guard if you play Question. Yes, Question. Try it out. Found it a really nice card with no flaws. There's no downside to it. As with Prohibition, there's no downside for it. Next one, a classic. I guess most of you are pretty familiar with that. With Reasoning, this is also, if it used in the correct deck, this has no downside at all. Let me quick read through it. Your opponent calls a monster card level. You then pick up, not draw cards from the top of your deck until a monster is picked up. If that monster is the same level as the one called by your opponent, all picked up cards are sent to the graveyard. If not, special summon the monster that was picked up in face-up attack or defense position and send the remaining cards that were picked up to the graveyard. So either or, doesn't matter. You mill a lot of cards for free. That's why this card is at 1. Yeah. This combined with Killer Winds or Lightsworn or any deck that loves to mill cards, you know, Infernoid, for example. This is always a win-win situation. You mill so much. If you get lucky, you mill half of your deck, and then, you know, shit's going down then. Yeah, and costs nothing. Reasoning is 2-cent card. But still 1, yeah, because it's extremely powerful and not once per turn. Next up, pretty similar one. The Monster Gate. Almost the same effect as Reasoning. It says, tribute 1 monster on your side of the field, and then you can excavate cards from your deck until you excavate a monster that can be normal summoned, and then you can special summon it, and all other cards get sent to the graveyard. So you have to, you know, excavate the cards of your deck from top of the deck until you find a monster that can be normal summoned. Then you special summon this monster, and all other cards get sent to the graveyard. So let's say you play a deck where there's exactly 1 monster in there that can be normal summoned, and all the other cards and all the other monsters can only be special summoned and not normal summoned. You know, that's crazy how much monsters you mill. In Lightsworn, for example, you know, Wolf Felice cannot be normal summoned. Cannot be normal summoned. So you mill, for the best part, 3 Wolf, 3 Felice. You can then special summon the 3 Wolf, not the 3 Felice, because Felice has to send by monster effect. Anyway, Monster Gate, very nice. Also not once per turn. Sadly, also limited to 1. Well, it has its reasons, you know, that this card and Reasoning is limited to 1. Because, yeah, they're just too powerful. But people don't play these, you know, or not that often, these 4 cards right now. I get it with Question, okay. That's really a little bit of underdog card. But Prohibition, Reasoning, Monster Gate, you don't see them very often, and I don't see why, because I think they're not too bad. Next up, also extreme classic one, the Creature Swap. Now you think, come on, don't fool us with those goat cards. Well, don't underestimate the Creature Swap. It says both players target 1 monster on their respective field, and then they switch control of those monsters, and the battle position of those monsters cannot be changed during the turn this card was activated. So the important word here is that each player selects his own monster to swap. So you do not target your opponent's monster, your opponent targets his own monster, you know, and it's not targeting. It's I don't really know how this is. The ruling for this is, if your opponent has a monster that cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects, you know, then it still works because your opponent targets his own monster, you know, and yeah, that's pretty bad. Or just imagine, you know, you play a game, your opponent combos, and you have some interruptions, and then he just ends up with a Palooza with 3200 ATK and nothing else, you know. Then you just normal summon any kind of monster, some crap monster, normal summon that, and then you activate Creature Swap. Can't do anything about it. And this monster stays on your field permanently, you know. This is permanently. You swatch these creatures, these monsters, permanently, forever. Yeah. Then you have the Palooza, and your opponent has the crap monster, whatever you normal summoned, and then whatever interruption he might have on his hand in terms on hand traps or whatever, you have then the Palooza. You can negate anything, and you can combo through your stuff, for example, you know, or you just steal choice or whatever to force your opponent to trigger its effect. Otherwise he will lose it, and then you can blow his board, you know. That's yeah, you get the idea with Creature Swap. Next up, a trap card actually. I talked about this several times now, about the Fiend Comedian. This is absolutely 100% a card without any flaws at all. Because it says, toss a coin and call it. If you call it right, all your opponent's cards in the graveyard are removed from play immediately. Immediately. I don't know why they wrote that. If you call it wrong, send a number of cards equal to the cards in your opponent's graveyard from your deck to the graveyard. That's it. So you don't, if you play, again, any type of mill deck, or with cards that need to be in the graveyard or that get activated in the graveyard or have effects in the graveyard, this is, you know, the way to go. You can't lose anything. Either you banish your complete graveyard, the complete graveyard of your opponent, the complete graveyard, everything get banished, or you mill as much cards as your opponent has in his graveyard. There is no downside to that, you know? Fiend Comedian is just way too good. And it's at free. You know, it's not limited. You can play this at free. Nice. Try it out. And the last one. Also, I don't know why people don't play it. You know, this is just broken. It's also at free. The Ectoplasma. Ectoplasma, yes, pretty old school card. Probably, you know, with the Dark Doll of Demise back in the day. You used to play that, but I think you can still play this today because it's just annoying as hell if you have the right deck set up for that. Once during the end phase of every player's turn, they must tribute one monster on their side of the field and then inflict damage to his or her opponent's life points equal to half of the base ATK of the tributed monster. So every turn, you too, of course, every turn you, in your end phase, you have to tribute one monster of yours, and every turn of your opponent's end phase, your opponent has to tribute one monster in the end phase. He has to. No, this is not optional. And then each of you inflicts damage to the respective opponent equal to half of the base ATK of the monster. So if you know, basically, again with the Appaloosa example, if he tributes Appaloosa away, you don't get damage because Appaloosa has no base ATK, for example. This is just sick, you know. Your opponent has a crazy board and basically can't do anything against that and loses every turn some monster in the end phase because he has to tribute it. Of course, you have to be careful, you know, your deck has to center around this card here because you don't want to get burnt to death, you know, or that your opponent somehow tributes a monster with, or continues to tribute monster with 4000 ATK, you know, and always burns you for 2000. So this wouldn't be nice. But any other way, you know, this is a crazy interruption. Yeah, Ectoplasma. Yo, these were 7 cards. Yeah, 7, yes. 7 cards, which I think that have no flaws at all. Try them out. Check them out. I'm sure you find some way to put these into your decks. Let me know what you think about it. And my usual words, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.